Welcome to this week's edition of Pickin' and Puttin'. Doc Z here in the corporate studios, along with Liberty Bill with his Rose Bowl shirt from the Southeast Iowa Hawkeye studios. And today we're going to have the Fooseball Fall 21 episode. And we start off with Waterboy. We got... We're going to play some foosball.
Iowa's featured in that movie prominently.
Yeah, there you go. Plus, a shout out to all those poor folks in Louisiana, because I lived there once and know what the experience is. And that's where Waterboy's from. I think Lafayette. So,
that's right.
There we go. Well, the other one I wanted to do a quick shout out for me, besides the folks in Louisiana and prayers are with you, is to Patrick Cantlay. That was the thing about that people get angry about was, the shouting out about Brooksy and all that stuff with Bryson, but it brought eyes to the screen. It brought people to golf, and that's what you got to have. You got to have a Patrick or a John McEnroe or Jimmy Connors. I'm dating myself, but you got to have somebody who stirs the pot, and that's what Bryson does. And the other part about that, they came out with this thing yesterday, the commissioner saying, well, we'll get down on that. Well, I think, as you've told me, and Christopher, my son, told me, this is for social media too. This is these guys are getting a bonus pool of money.
He can handle it. He's a big boy.
Yeah, both of them can. They're making big bucks. So I did learn something today. It used to be that the tournament paid out a separate fee for winning the tournament this week, and then they got their part of the FedEx. Now it's just one big pool. So first place gets 15 million, last place gets 400 grand. Not a bad gig for 4 days of work.
Let's go Finau.
Yeah, I like Tony. That's a good pick. I like him. I've been pulling for JT, but he's been letting me down a little bit, but I'm still hanging with him, even though he went to Alabama. I won't hold that against him. Well, we decided today we'd talk about college football and pro football, but we wanted to start off today. I wanted to go into a few songs, and we're going to start off with the Hawkeye Victory Polka. I wish I could play all these folks because they're really a lot of fun. But it says, and Bill can talk more on this, but it says, in heaven there is no beer. It was introduced in the 1960s, and then the president in 2001 banned it.
Yeah.
And so the alumni went ape shit. They brought it back. The band has to learn it, but here's the deal I thought was still interesting. New band members have to learn it by ear because the university won't allow sheet music to be printed. I'm going, oh, come on. That's just crazy. So, but here, I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Bill wants to sing it. He can. In heaven, there is no beer. That's why we drink it here. And when we're gone from here, our friends will be drinking all the beer.
And after every sporting win, not a loss, but after a win, the band plays that song, and everyone in the stadiums, you can imagine 70,000 people at Kinnick singing that song, and you know what they're going to do after they go sing that song. They're going to go drink beer. And even if you go to bars, if you go to the bar here in Charlotte, Broswell's, or the bars in Chicago, they'll play that song after a win. So it's a great tradition. In 2001, what happened is one of those party school studies came out. And then Iowa was like number one on it. And there were honestly a few deaths. I mean, every school has binge drinking problems. But they thought that somehow eliminating a 60-year-old tradition would curtail binge drinking. Yeah, that didn't last too long. And that song is a special song. And that not many get me that fired up, but that one certainly does.
And that's the fun about college is the traditions. I mean, they had a thing yesterday. I was watching the pregame show on ESPN, and it had a very cool thing. It had all these traditions, and then the top 5 traditions. What's very cool is I was number 5 for the wave.
Yeah, that's a great new
And that's
tradition.
that's a new tradition of the last decade, and everybody loves that when they wave to the children's hospital.
And the best part about that one is it was completely organic. Some season ticket holder, some woman on Facebook said, "Hey, Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa football program basically built this children's hospital with all the donations that they did. So why, and it's overlooking the game. It was brilliant construction. Why don't we pause at the end of the first quarter and wave to them?" And so it literally started on Facebook, and now it's university sponsored, and they make a big thing about it, and TV picks it up. But that's what I think is cool about it. In a world where we have so much, to me, kind of fake corporate sponsorships, like you go to a Panthers game, seems like every 5 minutes Budweiser wants you to stand up to salute the troops. You know, it's not authentic. This was an authentic fan experience, and now it's totally, and it's a good thing to acknowledge those kids up there fighting cancer.
Yeah, and the visiting team always does it too, which is
cool. And the TV stays with it during the commercial break. Yeah, and it's not sponsored by anyone. That's what I love about it. It's just an organic thing.
That was the cool thing. So that was number 5 tradition, and number 1 tradition, guess what it was? It is not hard to figure out. It was the tuba dotting the I.
Yes, of course.
That's been around for 100 years. So that's pretty cool.
And you have to get in your...
I don't know about the dot in the I part, but the script Ohio's been around.
Seeing the whole thing, you got to get in your seat to see that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, and they have famous people come back and do it. Well, the other one I went through all the schools that I kind of know, like I'm wearing Florida State for the Seminole in my family, so I got to do that. But
hey, they're going to beat Notre Dame this weekend.
Wouldn't that be cool? I'd like to see a bunch of upsets except for Virginia Tech. I don't want Sandman. I want Sandman to go to sleep. But then North Carolina's was called Hark the Sound. And a lot of these, that's what's interesting. It was written in 1897. And, the key to that is if you've ever been to North Carolina, is I'm a Tar Heel born, I'm a Tar Heel bred, and when I die, I'm a Tar Heel dead. It's rah, rah, Carolina line, rah, rah, Carolina line, rah, rah, Carolina line, go to hell, Duke. And that's spelled D-O-O-K, So that's how they sing that after about 100 times. Then Ohio State's the Buckeye Battle Cry. And, everybody's heard the Ohio State Marching Band and Across the Field. That was written in 1915. And it was introduced, and you'll like this, at a pregame rally to play Illinois in 1915.
Wow.
So there you go. That's that one. Then, and the deal with that with Ohio State is they conclude and they sing that in the locker room after every game, win or lose, which hadn't been a lot of losing.
No.
And
probably won't be a lot of losing this year either.
No. And then I got 2 more, and then we'll get on to talking. There were two, obviously 2 great ones are Notre Dame and Michigan. And, Michigan's Hail to the Victors, and it was written in 1898. And it was the first fight song ever written. So there's one for you.
Interesting.
And then Notre Dame, the Victory March was written by a Reverend Michael J. Sheen, and his brother John wrote the lyrics, and they wrote it in 1905. And the first time it was ever performed was in 1909 in the Golden Dome Rotunda. So there you go. So that's my musical stories for the day, folks. There are probably a hell of a lot more. I mean,
I'm surprised, and I got to give a tribute to my old man here. What about the Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech, the 1930 Ford Model A Sport Coupe?
Oh, and you know what? That's the other thing they talked about yesterday, which is really cool. Think about the top 5. Well, the problem was it was animals. So, they had the buffalo from Colorado, and what's the number 1 animal in that?
Oh, Bevo or whatever, the longhorn.
Bevo was number 2. Uga was number 1.
Oh, Uga, I forget about that one. Yep.
But they should have done the best mechanical things, and that would have been Georgia Tech and Purdue were the world's biggest drum. I'm trying to think of a couple others. I don't know.
Purdue is an underrated venue to go to a game, by the way. It's very easy to park. It's a nice, open, relatively modern stadium. Highly recommend going to a game there.
What's it called? Ross-Ade Stadium?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's, well,
their basketball arena is fantastic too, Mackey.
Yeah, as a Midwest boy, you got to understand that Purdue, they put it out there in the middle of a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I mean, they were the first ones that drummed up. They had the Golden Girls they were the first ones to have really cool drum majorettes and stuff before we went to all the flags and all that stuff. So anyways, and they've always had great football. Well, let's get into talking about what you wanted to talk about, which was the season. And this weekend kicks it off. I mean, this is crazy. Today, this is September 1st that we're doing this audio, folks, and hopefully we'll get it out very quickly, so it'll be available this weekend on all the platforms. But the teams that are playing, I mean, it's crazy. So if we go through them, you pick out some games you want to. There's gonna be. Remember how they come up with the top 10 or 20 preseason, and outside of Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia maybe, or Texas or whoever, but those three in particular. That top 10, 3 weeks from now, there'll be teams that aren't even in the top 20. They're listed in the top 10, and there'll be somebody that you just go, oh my God, they're really good. Like Coastal Carolina was, or, some team like that comes out of the bushes that we just don't know about, So that's what excites me. There's some good, North Carolina kicks off on Friday playing Virginia Tech. There's the number one entrance in college football. That's what they ranked it. If you ever watch that, they always play at night. And that was thanks to Frank Beamer. All of that was recruiting. He was willing to move their games to Thursday night, and it became a recruiting tool because they were the only team on television.
Yeah, I remember Mike Vick. I would give him a lot of credit too. I remember watching those games being in high school, and then you get the video game and you want to play with Virginia Tech. They made Virginia Tech cool.
Oh, he made it cool, and then he made special teams cool. But all that. So their athletic offices and locker rooms are outside the stadium. It's kind of like, Clemson comes in, they drop them off in buses and they run down and hit the rock. That was number 2, I think. But
our truck.
Yeah. But, and that is a cool entrance. I always worry some kid's going to fall down though, and it'll be like a bowling alley. But the deal is they come from back and they get the stadium pumped. They start playing that music and the players walk out of the locker room. They walk all the way across a practice field and in through an entrance. And when they kick off at Virginia Tech, that place is, right up there with Wisconsin in terms of shaking the stadium in the upper deck. I'd
love to get there we need to go to a Carolina at Virginia Tech game one of these years. Hopefully when the little guy's a little older. I would love to go to a game up there.
Yeah, it's that don't get me going on those night games, because that for them was always brilliant. Now that ESPN controls and the televisions control the kickoff times, and you're kicking off at 4:12 and 11:59, and it's just stupid, but that's another story.
I will say, for me as the TV viewer, I'm cool with it because the noon games kind of suck now. So you really don't have to sit down and watch it till 3:30 or 4. So especially with the family, you can kind of do stuff during the day, and then you don't have to sit down till 3:30 or 4 to really watch the game. So I'm cool with it. It's a pain for you as a season ticket holder trying to live your life and do things and not knowing, is the game going to be at noon? Is it going to be at 8? I don't know. That's a challenge, and could easily fix that. They could schedule the games.
Yeah, well, as a season ticket holder, if you go that way, then the problem with the night games is everybody's horizontal by 6 o'clock. The difference with the students is they go horizontal, take a nap, take a shower, and come back and start over. They show up in the second quarter of a night game. So, well,
the good thing is they're now selling beer in the stadium. And circling back to your comment about Iowa and how they tried to remove that song, that to me was always the big issue, was everybody really tied one on before the game because they knew they wouldn't get another sip of alcohol for 4 hours. But now in Iowa, they're selling alcohol. They've been selling it at Carolina. And that, I think, helps curtail the binge drinking because you'll be able to have access to alcohol during the game.
Well, but what's interesting about that, because what I remember was 2 years ago now, or whenever last time we went to a game, but it's pretty much virtually impossible to buy more than two. Because by the time you go down, you get in your seat, you have, let's say you buy them and then you go halftime or something, you might be able to buy 4 beers and then they stop selling in the third quarter or whatever. I mean, so they have controls on it. You're not going to get people able to go in there and drink 10 beers,
Yeah, and they don't have liquor, which is smart, I think.
Yeah, well, they do in boxes, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's well. Anyway, let's get into the games. Okay, pick a game you're excited about. What's one that really floats your boat?
Well, overall, and I'll be traveling and going to a wedding, so I won't be able to watch as much football as I would like. But overall, we've never had a week one in my lifetime with this caliber of games, and I think it's a couple of reasons. First is the Big Ten and the ACC have 9-game conference schedules, so they're opening up with conference games, which I love. Let's not play Kent State out of the chute. Let's get some meaningful football. Iowa, Indiana is a huge game. Two teams that are hopefully trying to compete in the Big Ten. I think the spread's about 3.5. That's going to be on at 3:30. And then you look at these non-conference matchups. You take a team like Clemson, which knows that if they lose a game in the ACC and they schedule a bunch of pasties in the non-conference, they might not make the playoff. So they've had to level up, and scheduling Georgia, Clemson, Georgia, week one. I mean, that could be a national championship preview. That is going to be an incredible football game. And there's a few that are under the radar. Ohio State's debuting a brand new quarterback. They got to go up to Minnesota. That's not going to be – the spread is 14. I absolutely love the Gophers to cover that spread. I'm not saying they'll win the game, but that could be a close game. And then Sunday, Florida State, Notre Dame. Hell, Monday, you got Louisville, Ole Miss. There's just a ton of really impactful games this weekend.
And it's interesting because, I get to see a lot wearing this hat with the background of my young one. And I think they're excited this year. I think they've turned their that will be an interesting game. Because Notre Dame, I don't know what they've got at quarterback, and the other one they're pushing really hard is Miami. And I guess the king at quarterback is a really good quarterback. And they play very early on. They play, who do they play? Not this week.
They play Alabama.
Oh, this week?
Yeah. At 3:30.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to, am I going to vote against Alabama? No, but you'll get a real eye opener as to how good Miami is. I mean, if they can hang in there and have it be a really good game, you might.
That'd be huge for them.
Yeah.
And it's a sneaky good game. I just said the noon games typically suck, but Penn State, Wisconsin is a noon game. That's a big time game.
Well, see, and that's the other thing you were talking about scheduling. The one who does that is Fox took the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And so they try to schedule a noon game, which is a good game because that's their big game.
Or Ohio State, because they know that'll draw ratings. But yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So Fox is brought now. It makes it tough on the Pac-12 because their studio that they run everything from is from LA. It's got Leinart and Reggie Bush. Yeah, Reggie Bush. By the way, Reggie, I got your Heisman right here. I'll send it to you because I think that's bogus. Okay, moving on. And don't tell me he doesn't have a copy of one sitting somewhere. It's probably sitting in his bathroom or something.
You know what I really want to see this year, though, is Alabama and Clemson not in the playoff.
Well, I think everybody would like. I think that's the deal. What pushes through to an expanded playoff, and we've said this before. I think with this alignment between the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, and then the SEC, and then the Big 12 is just going to have to bite the bullet and align with somebody somehow. But I fully believe it'll be both east of Mississippi, west of Mississippi. But that being said, what you just said, yes. I mean, I would like to see a breakout. I would not have a problem seeing, Indiana, North Carolina,
Oregon, USC, Texas A&M,
Iowa State. We'll see.
Iowa State. There we go.
But here's the big one there is the Pac-12, if they're going to get any kind of respect, they got two big games where they come east to the Big Ten. You know, Oregon plays at Ohio State, and Washington, I think, plays at
Michigan. Yeah, big Washington that game.
They got to have to make a good showing in those. And the sad part is, even if they make a good showing and lose both of them, then everybody will go, "Oh, that's a Pac-12. See you later," and then nobody will care anymore. And I really don't understand why the recruiting there is so hard. I mean, why UCLA or Arizona or Stanford, you know, why is all that dropped off the map? I don't get it. I mean, I get how Alabama and Clemson have become these juggernauts, but and you saw, I mean, the starting quarterback, like they said, the starting quarterback signed a contract at Alabama for his likeness for $1.5 million. More power to the kids. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that's crazy.
Well, the class of maybe it's 2017. The class of 2017 Alabama quarterbacks: Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
All three of those guys are starting next Sunday for NFL teams. They were all on Alabama at the same time. So to your point, so 24/7 Sports is a fantastic resource. They put together what they call the talent composite that basically puts all the recruiting rankings, all the transfers, and ranks the teams just in terms of pure talent. The Pac-10 has two top 10 teams, Oregon and USC, at 9 and 10. The problem is they don't have the caliber of quarterbacks. The quarterbacks you're seeing from Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, that's the difference right now. And even Georgia screwed up. They had Justin Fields, and they didn't pick him as the starter, and he left and went to Ohio State, and now he's going to save the Bears. So you got to get the quarterback right.
Well, and it's no different in college than pros, and the deal is with this instant ability to transfer. I mean, just for an example, this is an aside. Penny Hardaway is the Kentucky Calipari of college basketball.
Oh, he's taking it to the next level in Memphis.
He's recruiting on the basis of, we'll get you that likeness dollars in your pocket if you come play at Memphis. You watch, he's going to have some team like the Fab Five from Michigan this year in basketball. Now, how long that lasts before something comes down on recruiting, I don't know. But if you look at, he's got Larry Brown on his coaching staff. I mean, he's really, so that's a different ball game. But yeah, I think that's changed the landscape, and it's kind of sad in a way, because I think college football as we know it. So how do those schools compete? How does Pullman, Washington compete with Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and eyes on the football? I don't know that they can come back and do that. It's going to be like they're going to be minor league college football.
If you expand the playoff, there will be more upsets. Just that's the nature of it. So that's what I'm optimistic about. If you get to 16 teams, it's hard to win 4 in a row, right, against the top teams. So hopefully that we need more parity. I'm personally picking and rooting for Oklahoma to win the national title. They have a defensive coordinator. He actually came from Ohio State, Alex Grinch. He started there just last year. So I think they finally have a competent defensive coach. Spencer Rattler might be the number 1 pick coming up, might be the best quarterback in the country. I'd like to see Oklahoma. I'm just so tired of Alabama and Clemson. I can't say it enough.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. I think it will when the playoff. Well, there's a couple things that'll also happen. They'll eliminate the championship games.
Yeah, and I'm over those at this point. I really am.
And those are just money grabs. And the other one that's going to change is who's going to play in the I'm going to win your gator tree cutting Pooh-Land Bowl. I mean, they're not going to play in those. I mean, the Reggie Bushes of the world say, I'm not doing that. I'm going pro next summer. I'm just forget that. And
the higher end. But for me as a fan, especially during the holidays. I do like watching a random bowl game at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So they'll never go. They get huge ratings and people bet on them. But I agree with you. The higher end athletes, and Christian McCaffrey really started this trend with Stanford. The higher end athletes aren't going to play in those bowl games, but I still think there is an opportunity for some of the smaller schools that maybe haven't been shown as prominently throughout the year to get some tape against a good opponent. You know, a good example of that is Florida last year. A lot of their players got some good exposure. So, but I hear you. You're going to see more of the higher end guys opt out.
But the other thing about that is if you go back to 25 years ago or even longer, when I would get up on New Year's Day and there were, the Sugar Bowl was the night before, but there were four big bowls that day, the cotton, the rose, the orange. And I think that's probably what we'll go back to. So those will be your playoff venues and they'll rotate who gets the championship game. And, and I'm sure they'll throw in Jerry World because it's a great facility.
Well, I'm thankful this year the semifinals for the playoffs are on New Year's Eve. I love that because New Year's Eve, I have never been a fan of. You gotta go out to some crowded bar or some restaurant with a prefix menu, and you could get a better meal there a week before or a week after. Everyone's out driving drunk. I'm not a big New Year's Eve guy. I'd rather sit at home, put on the college football playoff semifinals, and bring in the new year that way. So I am jacked that this year the playoff semifinals are that night, because then the next day you can lie on your couch and watch the Rose Bowl in the sunset over the mountains in California.
Yeah, well, you take me back to my medical training because everybody wanted to work Christmas because Christmas was dead. Even if you were on call, you could celebrate Christmas morning and then go in. New Year's, all the idiots were out in the knife and gun clubs and cars.
Oh, yeah, no good, no good.
Yeah, so shifting gears a little bit. So the quarterback situation. So since yesterday, and we're well attuned to it. So they cut Cam Newton from which I predicted. I said I watched the other kid play, and he looked like the previous quarterback who's in Florida now. He looked just like him, like he plugged in a new Tom Brady, so to speak.
Yeah.
Into a system. And I even heard Teddy Bruschi talking today saying, well, they did fine with Cam and they had all this, but they realized they plugged the other guy in, and it is what they've been doing for 15 years. He fit their model. He said the only thing he was surprised about is he thought they might keep Cam and do a hybrid like New Orleans has done with their pocket knife quarterback guy who does 52 different things for them,
especially in the red zone. And I think that they would have done that had Cam simply gotten the damn vaccine. Yeah. I truly believe that.
And here was the deal. It was very interesting because they had the presser for the coach, and the coach, well, coach, why'd you cut him? Well, we looked at a lot of plays and, we just kind of, we did. Okay. Well, that was his answer. In other words, it was a pure Belichick. Nah, he didn't tell you squat. But then they asked him somebody specifically asked about the vaccines. And basically he took the company line of the NFL, but what comes down to be there is very good point. They're not saying you should or you shouldn't. That's your right as a player. But this, as a business, it's big bucks. And this year they're not rescheduling.
No.
So we can't have the quarterback, the most important position in the room, be in the room with our other two quarterbacks and have somebody get infected. They go into a 5-day protocol and we don't have anybody to plug in for the weekend.
Exactly.
So
it's going to end his career because
if you want to be employed, get the shot. If you don't want to get employed, then that's cool. That's your right, but you won't be employed by the NFL. We are your employer. And our business site is this building that you come into. So I get that. I mean, and especially,
of course,
especially a quarterback, he's not the second string defensive back. The quarterback, if you don't have those guys, or if they have a specific protocol now. So the guys who haven't had vaccination get tested every day. The other guys get tested once a week. If you test positive, then they've got, who you with, and you're 5-day isolation.
And if you're not vaccinated, it's 10 days.
Yeah, so you miss a game.
So the NFL, I applaud them, especially compared to baseball and NBA. They have basically said, get the vaccine or find a new job. And Carson Wentz, who got a bad reputation in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia can be pretty hard on their athletes. However, Carson Wentz kind of seems like an asshole to me. He's up in Indianapolis right now. He's unvaccinated. He tested positive. They have like 8 players in the protocol. He's out for 10 days. They're playing a game in 11 days. He's not going to be able to practice. I mean, and Cam Newton, if he wanted to go to a new team, he would have to, I believe it's 5 consecutive negative tests. And there's a 10-day quarantine before he can even join a new team. He's done. His career is over. And he had a bad bout with COVID last year. And he smokes cigars every day.
But here's and we'll go on to more of the football. The problem we have with that and getting into that from a medical perspective and putting my medical hat on is nobody's explained to me, okay, so you had COVID. Then that gives you some degree of immunity. And then these guys test positive and they claim they got it again. And so I don't know, have total faith in who's being tested, because now you have the ability to check antibodies. So for example, if you did have it, and you should be able to get an antibody test. And, so that part for me and you is a little confusing, but that's altogether different.
Bottom line, get the shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the college campuses are doing it for the same reasons, because I think if you go to the universities, the major state universities, like Indiana was one of the first to say, if you're going to be on campus as a student, you have to be vaccinated.
Ohio State did it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about this. My nephew was going crazy because they're going to have 115,000 people in the stadiums spitting, cheering, screaming, drinking beer. And they're not going to wear masks, but they got to wear a mask to go pee.
Oh, well,
that drives him crazy. But
there's an easy. They should require proof of vaccination or a negative test to attend a mass gathering. That should be a federal thing.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen this year. And then you get into First Amendment and all that. Well, who have you got? Well, I tell you, getting off on the quarterback thing. One more thing when we were talking about Chicago and stuff.
Oh no, I don't want to talk about that.
No, I know, but you talk about Matt Nagy and how certain coaches and quarterbacks, there's no doubt in my mind after watching in that preseason game that Mitchell Trubisky can play in the NFL if he's in the right situation. I'm always sad that some of these guys get destroyed by now some of them are really great and they make it, but some of them get drafted and get stuck. And I bring up David Carr, because they put him in there and they just get crucified. And after 3 years, everybody says they stink. Well, that's because your line stunk and he was on his back for 5 years. So I think, being a backup to Buffalo, they've got a good thing there. And out of that, that he'll probably sign somewhere else. But that's because I was going back to Cam. Now, on the other side of that, I think if he's going to sign anywhere, where's he going to sign? Well, to me, it's got to be the Texans.
No, he's not going to sign anywhere because he refuses to get the vaccine. Yeah, he's done.
I'm not talking about the vaccine. I'm talking about if he is to sign anywhere, where would you sign him? Because they're not going to play Deshaun Watson the whole year. He's not playing. He may never play again. He may be like the running back from Baltimore. He may be done.
I agree. I do think he's done.
So if that's the case, they don't have a quarterback.
Tyrod Taylor, baby.
Well, okay. But
I think they're tanking, honestly, at this point, the Texans.
Well, they may do. And I mean, if they brought Cam in, they'd pay him $1 million to be the quarterback. The same thing New England rented him last year. So
I will say on the quarterback, Mac Jones, Mitch Trubisky, there's a clear line of demarcation in my mind. First of all, there's never been more average NFL quarterback talent available. These kids are playing 7-on-7 in middle school. They're getting specialized coaching in high school outside of the team. There are more NFL average quarterbacks than ever. And you can look at the statistics to back it up. So Mac Jones, Mitch Trubisky, Andy Dalton, these guys are all quarterbacks you can win with, right? But then there's only a small handful of guys that you win because of. I'm talking Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't had the best supporting cast. I'm talking Russell Wilson. Pat Mahomes, I think, is one of those guys, but honestly, he's had the perfect situation. I'd love to see him with a bad set of playmakers around him. He's always had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, etc.
I mean, the example of that is a kid in Arizona.
Kyler Murray, I think he could be a win because of. That's a great example, but I don't know if he has the surrounding cast.
Well, that's my point. Compared to the kid in Kansas City, he has less surrounding talent. And the thing I have with Spencer Rattler, and he's going to be a great college quarterback. He is. And Sam Howell at North Carolina is
could be a win because of.
But here's the difference that he's a pro style quarterback. He's got a little bit of mobility, but God, he's got a rifle arm. Sam Howell reminds me of the old Detroit quarterback who's now in LA. He's got just enough mobility to get out of there, but he can throw the ball 80 yards on a rope.
Yep, he's not going to be an option quarterback, but he can extend plays. And if he gets pressure, he can move within the pocket and keep his eyes downfield. And Mitch Trubisky can't do that, and Mitch Trubisky will never be able to do that.
Well, but my point to that was the Oklahoma kid, they look at these guys, and that run component is good for about 5 years in the NFL, and then your wheels go, and Cam's a perfect example. I mean, he was functionally a running back. Now, he's just a specimen of an athlete, and he was a personality. But sooner or later, you can't keep taking all those hits. And these smaller guys that come out that are fast and quick, like him or like Patrick Mahomes, that's fine that they set up every once in a while. But you can bet your butt Andy Reid wants him to get rid of the ball instead of taking off.
And we'll see. Lamar Jackson will be a fascinating case study. We'll see. Can he have a 10-year prolonged career being a true hybrid runner passer? So far, so good. And he does a good job at avoiding the big hits. But that will be fascinating to see if he can really be doing that style of play for a decade.
Well, and they went out and got people, and they claim they got some receivers, but then of course they lost their J.K. Dobbins to an ACL injury.
Sucks.
And that kind of sucks for him and for them. Now they can plug in another good running back, but not a great running back. So we'll see. I mean, I at some point in the NFL, you got to be passing. You just got to have a passing game. You would have said that a great defense. I mean, Baltimore won a Super Bowl with just a great defense. And
that was a different era.
Yeah, I know.
Different rules. I mean, really. And you look at it, the modern era of football starts in 2011. And everybody talks about quarterback saving a franchise. If you got The Ringer had a great article. I tweeted it out. Follow me, L Bill Sports on Twitter. And it's a great read. And it goes through nature versus nurture of a quarterback. Do you throw him into the fire or do you let him sit? And basically it goes through and it discovered Cam Newton is the only quarterback in the modern era of football the last 10 years that took a bad team, immediately turned around and led them to a Super Bowl and basically single-handedly did it. He is the only one that's done it. So like the Texans, we're going to tank and then we'll get Sam Howell and he's going to save the team. Well, that doesn't really happen. You kind of need to have a good team. Like Baker Mayfield, the Browns have put in good pieces around him now. You brought up Kyler Murray. He doesn't have the pieces around him now. It takes a whole team to tango.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. I mean, they brought I was thinking the
Deshaun Watson, even. The Texans were terrible. Deshaun Watson is incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know what I was going to say. The deal is, it used to be they took the quarterback and you brought him in and you did a Jordan Love on him like they did in Green Bay, and he would sit for 3 years. And I don't, when I'm the management guy, I don't really care what Aaron wants. If he's 38 to 40, they're not.
He's an employee.
He's an employee, and he's approaching 40. And so Aaron did to Brett Favre what Jordan Love could do to Aaron. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's part of the game. So they have to plan that. But my point to that was, it's okay to have a guy like that that's in the quarterback room and learns for a year or two before you get stuck in there. Now, I mean, that's the way it used to be. No guy.
And part of the reason they did that is because they wanted all these quarterbacks to learn the coach's system.
Right.
But that's the other thing, and I'll give credit to Shula, who I know a lot of fans in here in Charlotte ripped on, but I will give him credit because one of the smartest things that he did, and now all these they did it with Robert Griffin III at Washington. They did it with Lamar Jackson at Baltimore. I hope to hell that Matt Nagy's talking to Ryan Day. Shula picked up the phone and called up Auburn and said, hey, what are Cam Newton's favorite plays? Oh, let's do those here in Charlotte. And you saw that with Robert Griffin III. You saw that with Lamar Jackson. You saw that with Baker Mayfield. You don't force your system. You say, here's a talent. How can I optimize their performance? Here's a few plays they're comfortable with from college. And Matt Nagy and Ryan Day have a friendly relationship from playing college football in the Northeast. So I am confident that they will have you'll see them week 1. Fields won't be starting, but you will see some Ohio State plays by Justin Fields and the Bears.
When he plays, yeah. I'm not sure what the game is they're playing there.
The Rams, Sunday Night Football.
Well, I mean,
you mean
the song and dance, because the general manager and the coach are on the hot seat. If they don't want the fans doing the New York Met cheer. And you know what? I don't have a problem with those guys doing that. You fans want to boo us the hell. You think we want to lose? I mean, go ahead and turn to the fan and go like that. And
especially New York fans.
Oh yeah. New York, Philly, go for it.
Boston.
Yeah. You guys, the hell with it.
I'll tell you, I'm going to the Panthers week 1. And if Sam Darnold's as bad as I think he's going to be for the first half, I'm going to boo.
Well, here's another quick prediction. I hope not, but as a native Panther fan, don't be surprised if you see the backup kid early on, because he was in the league, the XFL, but he was the leading quarterback. PJ
Walker. Yep.
And he was dynamic, and he played earlier this year. And for the same reasons, the coach knows what his strengths are, because he coached him. So if he went in there, he'll just change his play calling to fit Walker. So who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised. The other day he played a pretty good game. So,
here's the Sam Darnold, getting back to that kind of win because of Sam Darnold has all the natural talent. He was highly touted coming out of high school. But there's one statistically, if you go back at Pro Football Focus has done a data study, the one stat that correlates is if you turn the ball over in college,
you turn it over in the pros.
Fumbles and interceptions don't just magically disappear. And Sam Darnold, also going back to that preseason game, a lot of people are really excited about it. Average depth of target, would encourage everyone to study up on that statistic. It's essentially how far down the field are you throwing the football? Okay, everybody around here ripped on Teddy Bridgewater. Oh, chuck down Teddy. Sam Darnold's average depth of target in a preseason game against second and third team players was 4.5 yards. Okay, that's terrible.
Yeah, but he threw it on a rope. It was a frozen rope for 5 yards, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, with Christian McCaffrey. Well, the thing is, that's the way Christian McCaffrey's been used. My snowball under the radar pick still is the Rams with Stafford.
And we're all rooting for him, aren't we?
I think Stafford is going to light it up playing for them and that coach. And I'm excited to watch him. And I'm not a Rams fan, but you watch out. And the other one, they're doing all these 2 quarterback systems. I heard him talking this morning. I mean, do you think Jimmy Garoppolo wants to sit on warm up the seat for Trey Lance? Hell no. He wants to play and watch him sit. His problem is he's a good starting quarterback, but he gets injured. You know, I don't think Garoppolo's problem is he's a winner. He's been to the Super Bowl. That's not his issue.
He's a win-with, though. He's a win. You can win with him, where Trey Lance might be a win because of. I applaud Kyle Shanahan for trading up, going and trying to find that special talent. Because back in the day, they'd be, oh, you can't draft a quarterback. You're going to hurt the starting quarterback's feelings. Jimmy's making $25 million a year. I'm not worried about his feelings. And if this plays out, where if somebody gets injured, like let's say Mac Jones unfortunately has a catastrophic injury and the Patriots are in the playoff hunt, they might call up San Francisco and trade for Jimmy G. So it's always good to bring in more talent. And the 49ers, it'll be interesting to see. Do they play them both? Does Trey Lance eventually take over? Trey Lance was taken in my fantasy football league, and I guess the guy is planning on holding on to him, assuming he's going to become the starter. The NFL has so many. That's the thing. The Bears and the Panthers are going to suck, both those teams. They have some of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. But, hey, at least we have some entertaining storylines across the league to watch. Aaron Rodgers, the last dance in Green Bay.
Okay, so here's the fun one. I just came up with this in my head. Let's come up with who's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
Packers, Bills.
Packers, Bills. Okay.
Packers, Bills, and I think Aaron Rodgers in his final year in Green Bay is going to win the Super Bowl, and then hopefully Carolina trades for him or somebody trades for him, because I do think this is his last year up there.
That's funny you said that, because I have Rams, Bills. So I'm right there with you. I just don't think the Packers will get that extra hump. I don't know why I say that, but I just kind of feel that. The other guy I'm rooting for is Jameis. I think Jameis will be.
Yeah.
I think under this guy this year, I think he'll be better. And the problem is they're going to have to play a whole bunch on the road now with the Superdome not available.
Yeah, the Chiefs are due for some bad luck, right? They've just had such an incredible run. It's hard to see them getting back to the Super Bowl.
So the other one is who's in the college championship game.
Oklahoma and Georgia, just because I want variety. But I really do think Oklahoma, with this new defensive coordinator and with Rattler and Lincoln Riley and a soft schedule that the Big 12 can cruise there and get there and win a shootout against Alabama or Clemson. Okay,
so we'll come back and view this later, folks, because I'm not a homer. I'm going North Carolina.
Oklahoma.
Oh, wow. North Carolina, Oklahoma. Bring this back up in January, folks.
Wow.
Because if we're right, I wanted to go out on a limb and be a homer. What the heck? And when you said Oklahoma, I was gonna say another red school, and I go, nah, I just can't do it.
So if you put $100 on North Carolina to win the national championship, and they do, you would make $5,000. So you might want to just put a little bet out there.
I was gonna say I was gonna buy a house in Fiji. Well, that's like when Phil put 10 grand on whoever won the Super Bowl. He did it in March for the next year, and they won. Remember that? Wasn't it Phil? Phil picked.
Oh yeah, he got in trouble for that, right?
Yeah, and I think the Super Bowl was in Phoenix.
He $20,000 wager on the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl at 22 to 1 odds. Damn.
Yeah, that was. I mean, who would have picked them? Yeah, so more power to Phil. I love Phil, anyways. I think that's a cute one. Well, you got anything else you want to predict?
Oh yeah, well, I do want to give a shout out. Actually, I got to get my base for Shohei Ohtani. That just has a standing shout out from me. But Wander Franco has reached base in 48 of his first 53 games in Major League history. There is only one other player that did that under the age of 21. Wander is 20 years old. Can you name that other player who did it he is a Hall of Famer, under the age of 21, reached base in at least 48 of his first 53?